Hi, I'm Revelo GM, and it's Halloween, so we're doing a fun little Halloween special episode that makes a lot less sense than some of the stuff that I did last year. We're ranking all of the Pathfinder 2nd Edition remaster classes that exist as of right now, based on how spooky they are. Purely just vibes, purely just a little bit of fun. Spur of the moment thing, we're just doing this, let's get into it. Starting with the Alchemist. Alchemists have poisons and elixirs and stuff. I think they could certainly be considered kind of spooky. You've got the classic, obviously they're not a witch, but the whole brewing of potions and things. I think within their world, an alchemist could be seen as spooky. Mutagens, I certainly think, can make them more spooky. Those are things which actually kind of change their behaviours and how they look a bit more. So someone coming along and learning that, oh, there's this person who can like change and give themselves claws and stuff, or suddenly run really fast after drinking weird elixirs and stuff, I think is kind of spooky. But on the flip side, they can also be quite helpful and treat people for diseases and help heal them and stuff. So I'm going to go for B tier for Alchemist. They're pretty middle of the road. There can be some very spooky elements, but some also a lot less spooky elements. Kineticist, elemental magic, fire, water, earth, air, wood, and metal. Having control over all of those things is very cool. If you're looking at things from the perspective of a natural kind of world, not a natural world, but of a Pathfinder world, where magic and things do just kind of exist, though, I don't think they're particularly spooky. I mean, they've got magic, so I think that automatically alleviates them from D tier, because there will always certainly be some small village or bunch of peasants somewhere who haven't seen magic before and always are going to get a bit shocked by that. But I don't think any much more than that. To be fair, at the same time, I haven't had any players play a Kineticist yet or run anything for them, so they might have some very spooky abilities that I'm not aware of. That, again, for a silly little video like this, doesn't really matter. So I think they're probably going to go in C tier, I think, for now. Now, the Magus, or the Magus, are going to be a bit spookier, I think. Any kind of magic caster also carrying a big weapon, or not just using spells, but clearly has some kind of melee capability as well, or something like that, I think is always a bit kind of scary, because you look at them like, oh, well, what can they do? That's kind of creepy. Beyond that, just kind of the magic that they have, lots of wizard spells. That kind of magic can be very powerful. And it can be necromancy or other very terrifying pieces of magic, which, I mean, I suppose if we're going down the angle of like kineticists could like burn you a lot and drown you and stuff, then that makes it more creepy. But purely from a spook factor, Magus, I think, is probably top of. No, I think I'm going to put them in B tier as well. I don't think they're super spooky, but they're not unspooky. They're just kind of there. Yeah. Monks, definitely have the capacity to be quite creepy. People just kind of run around with their fists, and suddenly can lash out at you, and you can't move, and you're suddenly stunned, as if from nothing. They move in weird stances. You can't hit them. For kind of like peak physicality almost. I think, not counting certain like key spell, focus spell kind of things you can do as well, because there's no obvious magic to it. I certainly think they are kind of creepy if you don't know what to expect. There's the people that can just kind of like strike people down with their fists as if there's nothing, catch projectiles and stuff like that. I think that makes them A tier spooky. Oracle next. Conduit for divine power, eschewing the traditional channels of prayer and servitude. Instead, glean sacred truths and mysteries embodied in overarching concepts. Certainly has the capacity to be creepy, as does any kind of thing that pertains to any kind of god, I would say, because it just purely depends on the deity in question. and it's kind of more about mysteries and stuff. So definitely some aspects of that that can be kind of creepy. Obviously they have magic again. I think I'm going to put them in top of, below Monk in A tier, because I think there's some versions of them that might not be spooky really, but others might be very spooky, and the whole kind of mystery element definitely leads to kind of potentially a kind of creepy factor depending on what the mystery is. Yeah, and some deities are just like the god of fear and stuff, and then obviously that's kind of creepy. Psychic, I don't know if we remastered them yet or not. So they're straight 2E, and I have not much familiarity with them. But again, they're using their mind to house secrets and to find out information, and they have magic again. So I think that puts them solidly in. I'm going to put them in below because I don't know as much about them as Oracle and stuff. I'm going to put them up in A tier as well, because they can learn all manner of things if they so wish. And magic is spooky. Ranger up next. I don't think Rangers are particularly creepy or spooky. They're good at tracking monsters and stuff, and tracking things that might be kind of creepy and spooky, but them themselves are kind of just pretty cool, pretty chill. I think for spook factor, I really don't feel anything from Rangers, so definitely D tier, I would say, from this perspective, this weird, unique perspective. Rogues certainly have the capacity to be spooky. They are super quiet, or they have the capacity to be. They can be really quiet on their feet. They can blend into the shadows and disappear. That doesn't necessarily mean that they will, but if you're being a certain kind of rogue, you could definitely be S tier for how spooky they are, just for like appearing and disappearing in shadows, kind of being like like Batman and stuff, where it's like, well, are they spooky? Not in the lens we usually see them from, but from the local bandit or brigand or something, then yes, absolutely, they can be spooky. They don't always have to be, though. Obviously, with Pathfinder, you can be a rogue that is more athletics focused or something else. So I'm going to put them top of A tier, because it's not necessarily always going to be a super spooky person, but you can be. Sorcerers, similarly, how your bloodline changes you will affect how spooky they're going to be. Like if you're an angelic kind of a sorcerer, or an Aesir sorcerer perhaps, then maybe you're not going to be too spooky, but a demonic or diabolic sorcerer, it's only going to be a bit more spooky, a bit more creepy, a bit more, well, demonic or diabolic. So again, I think it very much varies. They have got magic again as well, which always ups that spook factor. Yeah, and the way that some of that power can create itself and influence stuff, I'm going to put them in above. No, because there's only certain kinds of them, so I'll put them in there. But I think these two, maybe these three, Oracle, Sorcerer, Psychic, can also kind of always move about a bit. Summoner next. They can summon big creatures. It depends what they summon. Again, really, I mean, it's almost like in a game where there's an awful lot of options for what you choose to create your character with. There's an awful lot of options as to what could be spooky and what couldn't be. I don't innately see them as someone spooky, but your summon could potentially be a bit spooky, I suppose. So we'll pop them at the top of C tier, I think. Top of C, maybe bottom B. Swashbuckler, again, like not spooky. I suppose you could do, if you're doing like Crew of the Black Pearl kind of thing, kind of like that kind of pirate, then maybe, but the whole panache side of things, and like the element of tumbling about and bravado and all that kind of stuff feels very much like the antithesis of spookiness to me. Again, purely just on vibes only, really. Animist, spooky. They're an connector between the spirit kind of realm, the seen and the unseen, stuff like that. You have bonds with spirits. They are innately the spooky class. 100%, very much a creepy class. Yeah, I don't think it needs much more elaboration than that. Thaumaturge next. I think, again, it kind of depends. I think they're A tier for different reasons. Because of how they can know how to know kind of what makes you tick. Almost like they're always examining, always looking for things, looking at how to mess with you, or how to break through your defenses, I suppose. Find out your weaknesses or create you new weaknesses. I think that's kind of quite disturbing, quite creepy, quite spooky from a more mechanical side for them. The Witch is another classic, kind of classically spooky class. I think legally I can't not put them at the top of S tier. It's the Witch, you know, and again, not necessarily even in a dark, spooky way, like traditionally, but just, you know, witch is so synonymous with spooky season, you know, the witching hour, all that kind of stuff. There's a damn cauldron on the logo for the class. The rituals, cackling, flying boomsticks, all that stuff. Even for being very kind of stereotypical about it, we are just doing purely on vibes. So, Witch top of S tier for spooky. Wizard, likewise, this one can go anywhere. Lots of their magic is very terrifying, especially powerful spells, and necromancy can also be. We haven't got a necromancer class itself just yet in Pathfinder 2e, which obviously would put it in S tier. So Wizard, I'm going to put dead on the middle of B tier, because it has the capacity to be very spooky, or not spooky at all, very much depending on the spells that the Wizard chooses. Gunslinger is a one that, again, in most situations I don't feel as being spooky really at all. I think maybe slightly more so than the Swashbuckler, because guns, but beyond that, they're not spooky. They're not really very creepy, outside of very particular character archetypes, I suppose, but the overall vibe of a gunslinger doesn't strike me as something that's kind of scary. The Inventor, inventing in this situation being either like a weapon, a construct, or kind of an armored suit. I think, again, not very. Obviously, Frankenstein's monster was somewhat invented, I suppose, but that's not really what this is. So again, they're not very spooky, really. But that inventing element side of things, to me, the kind of crazy inventor, even if they're not directly that, I think still puts them into C tier for me, just for kind of the crazed inventor, because that's still kind of a classic Halloween sort of spooky look, even if it's not like directly spooky. You get what I mean, I'm sure. Exemplar, demigods. Again, thinking about this from the perspective of a regular person, then I'm sure they're quite terrifying, but them themselves, not so much. They're very powerful beings. They're incredibly rare to see, so I suppose from that perspective that would be spooky, but we're going kind of back and forth between what just feels spooky in vibes and what people in a world where these characters existed would feel as spooky. And to be fair to the regular person, most of these things probably would. Exemplar, being touched by a god, though, I think obviously the god could be spooky. I know that's not how it happens traditionally in Pathfinder lore, but in a more general sense, feels like least spooky to me. They feel like larger than life, heroic, for the most part, rather than spooky. So we're going to put them down at the very bottom of D tier, I think. The Commander, a martial character that commands allies. Spooky, maybe a little bit. I mean, they have knowledge and tactics and stuff. If you're seeing a commander on an opposing battlefield, then you might be a bit scared of them, but that's not really the same thing, is it? They might, however, use tactics to turn things against you. You need to be kind of careful of them. I think like maybe just above kineticist, but they're not really spooky in any real way. Same with Guardian that we have next. Guardians aren't creepy, really. They aren't in that sense. I mean, they do shrug off a lot of damage and just kind of keep on coming, which is spooky in a way, I suppose. It's creepy. It's kind of like Terminator vibes, though less assassinating. Although I suppose maybe you could make that. But okay, I've kind of brought myself around with the kind of Terminator angle of it just keeps coming. Bottom of B tier. There's a bit of a rogue one, perhaps, even amongst these, but yeah. Barbarian. Traditionally speaking, of course, not necessarily scary, but if a crazed lunatic comes running at you with an axe, Chainsaw Massacre, something like that, that's a raging, angry person who's hard to stop. That's pretty scary. So I think, again, your mileage may vary, but I think I'm gonna put Barbarian from that angle of just like the slasher horror villains up into A tier just below Rogue. Yeah. Bards. Okay. Clever orators, performers, things like that. Occult spellcasters. Ooh, interesting, because yeah, you've definitely got the capacity to be manipulating people behind the scenes. Pied Piper kind of vibes, things like that. Clowns, evil clowns, that kind of thing. Yeah. Even the way that I'm doing this list is changing as we're going through it. This is not consistent. Not that it matters, but yeah, that's kind of wild. I think in general, bards, with their way to sway just the masses, with just their words or with song, that's very spooky. Obviously, lots of actual bards aren't going to be like that, but I think we're gonna push into that hard, and we're gonna put them up there. Okay, champion next. Obviously, you've got paladins, but you've got the opposite side of that. You've got the evil kind of versions. It's not good and evil because we've not got alignment anymore, but you know what I mean. Very much middle of the road again. You can have someone who is a pillar of virtue, or an absolute tyrant who is a terrible kind of person. You're not going to sure what you're going to get. What would be tier, I think, for that again. Cleric. It's probably going to go in a similar place because of you don't know what exactly you're going to be cleric of. If you're a cleric of life or love, a cleric of the sea, potentially, well, that could be scary, I suppose, but if you're going to be cleric of any of those things, then that's pretty solid. If you're a cleric of the god of death, or of the undead, or of fear, or like blood or something really creepy, then yeah, you might be a lot more scary. So really, your mileage may vary. So I think I'm gonna put them top of B tier. Yeah, I think top of B tier. Nearly there now. Druids, forests turn into animals, plants that exist in solitude. I don't see nature as scary, particularly. So for most of the times, druids are life, and sure, change, but like protection from kind of darkness. But at the same time, the woods are scary. It's kind of like shaman magic, druid circles, ritualistic kind of stuff. Those kind of vibes that you get for druids could be creepy. But yeah, I don't really get the vibe of like true scary creepiness from them. Even though I'm sure that they could definitely pull that off. You've got kind of the ideas of like the Green Man and things like that, which is definitely kind of like the spirit of nature coming out for revenge. But that feels a little different. But druid stones and stuff definitely can be can look spooky and stuff, and look creepy. So let's go with. We're really changing this as we go. I'm gonna put them in just below Alchemist and Cleric, with the capacity to be much higher, but I think that works for them. Fighter is another class that you could do a lot with in Pathfinder, but I don't think being spooky is a thing I can think of. I think they're going to the very bottom. I really can't think of a way in which they could be spooky. To me, again, that's not, you couldn't make a spooky character who is a fighter. It's just purely on the vibes and what I'm thinking of, and yeah, nothing really comes to mind for a fighter. And that just leaves us with Investigator, who, yeah, eye for details, notice things, picking things up, really focusing on certain things or certain people, eye for detail. Could definitely make an argument for like a serial killer vibe, maybe, from an investigator. You know, you'd hope investigating the serial killer, but not necessarily. Yeah, I think kind of similar angle to Thaumaturge, looking for like certain angles on things, kind of creepy, kind of invasive, that kind of thing. I think they're going to go up there in A tier. So there we go. Witch, Animist, and Bard in S. Rogue, Barbarian, Investigator, Thaumaturge, Monk, Oracle, Sorcerer, Psychic in A. Cleric, Alchemist, Druid, Magus, Wizard, Guardian, Champion in B. Inventor, Summoner, Commander, and Kineticist in C. And Ranger, Gunslinger, Swashbuckler, Exemplar, and Fighter in D tier. That was an experience. I wasn't sure where a lot of those were going to go, apart from maybe like Witch and Animist. I was pretty sure I was going to have an S tier because, you know, that just makes sense. Oracle could maybe push higher, but I don't know enough about them for just what this video was, just a bit of fun. But yeah, I'll link the tier list down below. Obviously, it's just a general class tier list. It's not for making spooky vibe lists, but I thought it'd be a little bit of fun. I've not managed to have enough time to do anything proper for Halloween this year, so here we go. I'm sure people disagree with this, but hey, this is just a little bit of fun. Any particular takes of any of the classes you think are super spooky, or vice versa, let me down in the comments below. Hope you've had a good Halloween, and hopefully I'll have another video out on Wednesday. Till then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you then. Goodbye.